I think you touched upon it in another select committee that you gave evidence to recently, but it's to do with county lines and vulnerable children, young adults. We've got a big problem in my constituency's county lines, and particularly at the YMCA, with very vulnerable young adults being targeted by these evil gangs to try and sell drugs, etc. And you've touched upon how that decreased during the pandemic, but it's now increasing again, sadly. What single thing do you think could be done to tackle this evil?
So it is back to normal, and the drugs market is as buoyant as ever. The big answer really is that you reduce the vulnerability of those kids, because they only pick on kids as commodities when they're vulnerable. How you do that is you keep a protective factor around it. You keep them in schools, you identify what these kids are in advance, and you help families to be able to support and protect those children if they're at danger. But without that protection, then my fear is that there are a group of vulnerable teenagers who are easy targets and sadly seen as quite disposable commodities by ruthless gangs.
It's just, I mean, I know you've already touched upon, your appreciation that, the transition to university is hard enough at the best of time. I mean, I remember being dumped off in Manchester by my dad, and for 10 minutes I was locked in my room, terrified that I was, not, away from home for the first time. What made it easy was within 24 hours, I probably met about 200 other young people. I was going to lectures, etc. So I think it's, that appreciation for the mental health challenge for students, but I think sort of particularly for first year students, I can't imagine how difficult it must be at the moment. And I think that, they can't socialise in the same way. They can't socialise in the same way. They can't go to these lectures. Their ability to meet people in a place they've never lived before. And we've heard from the University College Union, she said that, the universities could be the next care home in terms of a scandal in terms of COVID. But I think that if we're not careful, students' mental health could be almost a scandal, because I think unless there is that huge attention on it. And I also think some of the rhetoric, I mean, they got that challenge to first year students, and and we sort of TV images of students being almost imprisoned in their student blocks. I mean, I think it's, yes, we need to tackle this virus as a matter of priority, but I think it's important that we always reflect on the kind of society we want to live in. And I think when it's our young first year university students in that position, I think we need to hug them and just communicate to them how much we're there for them as a society. So I know you've touched upon these things already, and I haven't really got a question in there, but it's just to really stress that point, particularly for first year students, and just how critically important it is, their mental health.
Yeah, no, completely agree. And the vulnerabilities of first year students, I remember my first year and equally being extraordinarily homesick. So completely understand and appreciate that. And Universities UK, which is the largest sector body, have actually produced a statement today specifically around those that are self-isolating and the expectations of the university sector. And that also includes a checklist, and that includes things like wellbeing checks and mental health support. And they're certainly the things that I have been, where every time we see an outbreak, I ring the university vice chancellor and I run through that checklist myself, actually saying, are you doing this? Are you doing this? Are you doing this? Because it is vitally important. And not just for those that are self-isolating, as you point out, there are limitations on those that are at university. And that's why they've worked very hand in hand with their student unions to ensure that the social life there are social activities online. They won't be the same, but all of this stuff needs to be done and layered up so that students feel that they're not alone and they're not experiencing those problems.
Thank